Hey guys, CloudBrain here with another modding tutorial for you all. Today we are going to be going over how to create basic items and food. Now you may notice that the project is a little bit more empty now. I did actually decide to clean it up completely and just remove like almost everything except for just this stuff. So the mod ID, the logger, and then the main cool stuff mod function. And the reason I did that is because I found out that you really don't need all of that stuff. Pretty much all of it is just for example's sake. So I decided to remove it so that we have a clean slate so that we can see all the progress that we're making as we make this mod. If you look to the side here as well, I've also moved the config and main mod file into the main folder. I created a new folder called main in cool stuff mod and moved all the stuff into there for organizational sake. So, with all of that out of the way, we can start. So the first thing that we're going to have to do when it comes to making items is create an item registry and then add that registry to the mod event bus. So the first step to do this is to come over to cool stuff mod. We're going to create a new package and we're going to call this package item. Now in here, we're going to create a new Java class and we're going to call this mod items. So we now have our mod items file, and what we're going to do to create this register, super simple. Just going to type public static final deferred register dot items, and this is a specially created deferred registered by NeoForge. They implemented this to make it easier to make items. They also have one for blocks, and I believe they have one for components now as well, which is what replaced NBT data in 1.20.5. And we'll be going over components in a later video to give you a full idea and the full scope of how they work. So don't worry about that for now. So we're going to keep going, and we're going to name this registry items. All uppercase, because that's just the convention for this. We're going to say equals deferred register dot create items. And in here, we're going to add our mod ID, which we can get from our main mod file. So cool stuff mod dot mod ID. We'll add our semicolons at the end. That's very important. Make sure not to forget that. And so now we've got our register set up. What we're going to want to do is come to the main mod file. We're going to come into our cool stuff mod function here. And in here, all we're going to have to type is mod items, because that is the name of our items class. Dot items, because that's the name of our register. Dot register. And then in here, we're going to add a mod event bus and add a semicolon to the end of that. This lets NeoForge and Minecraft know about our registry and actually use it in the game. So that is the registry set up. All we need to do now is to actually add items. So we're going to go back into our mod items file. And in here, I decided that the first item that we're going to create is an orange. Now I'm going to start with a basic item, and then we're going to turn it into a food item later on in the video. So to make our orange, we're going to say public static final deferred item this time. Deferred item. We're going to add some brackets and then item. Now make sure that this is imported. Sometimes when you click on it, it will automatically import it, and sometimes it'll ask you if you want to import the class. Just make sure it is net.minecraft.world.item.item. It's very important that it's this item because there are actually two item files and you don't want the wrong one. So now we're going to give our item the name, so orange in all caps, just like before, then equals our registry name, so items dot register. I'll add our semicolon real quick. And then in here, what we're going to want to do is add a string, and this string is going to contain the name or the ID. So we're just going to do orange in all lowercase this time, because that's a convention for the ID name. And what we're going to do next is add some parentheses. Add this nice little arrow thing. I'm going to get some space next. And then all we're going to want to type is new item. And inside that, new item dot properties. Now this is where we're going to add some of our properties. And to see the ones that are available to us, we're going to hit dot. And we can see all of these. You can see food is one of the properties that we'll be using later. Fire resistant, that keeps it from burning up in fire. Stacks 2, that's like the max stack. And a bunch of other stuff here as well. So for right now, we'll just start with stacks 2, right? To have a max stack. And we'll say 16. So instead of being able to stack to 64, this will just stack to 16. Now, if you want to add a second property onto that, you're just going to need to go to the end of the first property and hit dot. And then you can add any other properties that you want, and you just kind of tag them along each other. So we'll say that this orange is fire resistant. So our item is now a part of the registry. It's been added to it, but there are a couple more things that we're going to need to do to make sure that we can actually see this item properly. We're going to need to add the texture. We're going to need to add a model JSON, and we're going to need to add the name to our language file. So what we're going to do first is the texture. So to add the texture, we're just going to go over to resources. We're going to create a new directory, and this is going to be called assets. Now this is where all of our textures and models and language files and a bunch of stuff is going to be going. So in here, we're going to create a new directory with our mod ID. So for us, that's cool stuff mod. We're going to need to make a couple more files in here. First, we'll make a new directory called lang. Then we're going to make a new directory called textures. And finally, we're going to make one more directory called models. Now we are starting with the texture, so go to the textures folder and create a new item folder. And here is where we're going to put all of our item textures. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab my orange texture and we're going to drag and drop it into the items folder. We're going to say yes. We're going to refactor. And our texture is now in the items folder. Now keep in mind, I am not an artist, so please forgive the art. But this is what our orange looks like. Okay, so the texture is added. That's all we're going to need for that. So we can close out of this. And the next thing that we're going to move on to is adding the model. So similarly to the textures, what we're going to want to do is come over to the models folder, create a new directory called item. And in here, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to name this orange.json. So the model JSON for simple items is also simple, thankfully. All we're going to need to do is create a new thing of curly braces. We're going to start with the parent component here. So we're going to add parent in double quotes, then colon, another set of double quotes, and in here we're going to type Minecraft colon item / generated. We can go to the end here and just hit enter, and it'll automatically add a comma to the end for us there. Now we're going to add another component here. So double quotes and then textures. We're going to add a colon and create a new set of curly braces. And in here, all we're going to type is some double quotes and layer 0. And we're going to add a colon, add another set of double quotes, and in here is going to be our item path. So that's going to look like your mod ID. So for us, that's cool stuff mod colon item / and then your item name. So orange. So that's the model done, and we can close out of that. And the last thing that we need to do is add our language file and then add our name to that language file. So our language file is going to go in, yep, you guessed it, the lang folder. So we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this en_us.json. Now, something to note is that this is the language file for United States or American English. There are a couple of other English files like Australian English and British English, as well as other language files for things like Spanish or Danish or German or like anything. So make sure that you're adding the correct language file for your use case. For this tutorial, we're just going to be doing American English because I am American and I do speak English. Try and look into what the name of the language file is called and use that instead of en_us. Additionally, you can actually add multiple language files if you want to support English and another language. So what we're going to do here is create a new set of curly braces. And this is pretty simple. All we're going to do is add some double quotes, type in item dot our mod ID, so cool stuff mod, mod dot, and the name of your item, so orange. Again, this orange is the same as this orange, so do keep that in mind. They will need to be the same. So then all we're going to need to do is add a colon, and then another set of double quotes, and then the actual thing that we wanted to say. So we're just going to say orange. If the language file isn't set up correctly, your item will actually have this name right here, which is why we are saying, hey, if you see something with this name, rename it to this. So that's it for the language file. So we can close out of this, and that should be your item done. So I am going to launch Minecraft in debug mode, and I will see you in there. Okay, so here we are in the game. I've got an empty inventory bar. Now, something to note is that this will not show up in any of the creative inventories. If I just type in orange, you're not going to see our item here. And that's because creative tabs are a separate thing that you're going to have to add. We're actually going to be going over that in the next video. So make sure you're subscribed and have the notifications on so that you are notified when that video comes out. So for now, what we're going to want to do is, first of all, make sure the world that you are in has cheats enabled. If you forgot, you can either create a new world or just come into open to LAN, allow commands on, and then start LAN world. That's just a little cheap way of actually turning it on. The reason you're going to need commands on is because we're going to need to do the /give command. So /give dev cool stuff mod orange. Now keep in mind, you are going to have to replace cool stuff mod with your own mod ID and orange with whatever item that you've made. And enter. So now we've got our orange. And we can do the whole thing. So let's say we want to give ourselves 36 oranges, right? You can see that it has stacked to 16. And if we were to say get a flint and steel and throw this orange in, you can see that it has not burned. I think you can also do this with lava. So if you were to throw it in there, yep, you could just pick it right back up. It's just kind of sinking down into the bottom. No problem. So right now it is just an item. You can't actually do anything with it. You'll have to add either crafting recipes or the ability to eat it as food. And that is what we're going to be doing right now. Okay, so we're back in our main mod file. And to turn our orange into an actual food that we can eat, it's going to be fairly simple. What we're going to want to do is come into item. We're going to create a new Java class, and we're going to call this mod foods. Okay, now that we have our mod foods file, what we're going to want to do in here is create a new food properties item. So to do that, what we're going to want to type is public static final food properties. And we're going to give it a name orange. And we're going to say is equal to a new food properties. Now we're actually going to get rid of those parentheses. And we're going to do dot builder dot nutrition. We're going to set the nutrition to 4 because that is the same as an apple, and we're kind of copying those nutrition values. I'm going to add some space here by hitting enter. And we're going to add dot saturation modifier. And we're going to set this to 0.3F. Now we can add more to this, like always edible, for instance. This will allow you to always eat it even if you are completely full. I believe things like golden apples and berries have this modifier. So we'll just tack this on to show it off. And the last thing that we're going to do is add an effect. So to do this, what we're going to do is dot effect. And to add a new effect, what you're going to want to do is add a new mob effect instance. And we are actually going to move this down here for a little bit more space. And in here, you're just going to want to add mob effects with an S dot whatever effect that you want. So for this example, we'll say that it gives you a little bit of a jump boost. And then the last thing that it wants is the probability of this happening. You can type in 1 for a 100% chance, or 0.5F for a 50% chance. We're just going to type in 1 so that it always happens. And then at the end of this, when you're done, you're just going to do dot build. And then add your semicolon. So this is all of the food properties that we're going to be adding to our orange. So now that we have those set up, we can go back into our mod items, go to the end of our item properties, add dot food, and in here we're going to add mod foods dot our food name, so orange. And now that we've added it, it should be a food now. So I will see you in Minecraft. Okay, so here we are in the game. I've got my oranges, and I've also given myself a little bit of hunger, as you can see down there. So now we can eat our orange, and if we were to fully eat our orange, it looks like it gave us jump boost there for just barely a second. And the reason for that is that we actually didn't add things like the effect duration and the effect amplifier, but you can also see that it gave us 2 things of hunger back. So we can eat another one to get us to full, and we can eat it again even though we are already full, and just keep eating our oranges. So let's go back and fix that issue with the effect. Okay, so we are back in our mod foods file, and we're going to be looking at this mob effect instance here. Now there are 2 numbers that you're going to want to add. The first number is the duration, and the second number is the amplifier. However, something to note is that the duration is actually in ticks and not seconds. Now, by default, there are 20 ticks to every second in Minecraft. So for instance, if you wanted this to last for 5 seconds, you will need to multiply 5 by 20. So in this case, that would be 100 for 5 seconds. And let's say that we get an amplifier of 3 to this jump boost. Now you can change this to whatever you want. Obviously, for things like instant health and instant damage, you don't necessarily even need a duration. So you could just set it to 1, but you could change this to whatever you like. You could make it heal you, you could make it give you luck, you could make it have a 50% chance of killing the player instantly. It's really up to you. So we're gonna jump back into Minecraft and see if this fixed it. Okay, so we are back in the game. We've got our 2 stacks of oranges here. And let me just... There we go. Now we're hungry. And so if we were to eat an orange, we now have jump boost 4 for 5 seconds. So there you go. We can jump real high. That is something to note. By default, the effect will always be of level 1. And every time you add an amplifier number, so in our instance we added 3, it will actually be 3 plus the default of 1, which means you'll actually get jump boost 4, not jump boost 3. And you can also see that it has healed up our hunger. So our item is officially created. If you had any issues with any of this at all, please let me know down in the comments and I'll try and help you out the best I can. But that's going to be all for today. So thank you for watching. I hope this helped you guys out and that you guys can make really cool stuff. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button, as well as turning on notifications so that you are notified of when my next videos come out. Like I said earlier, the next video that I'm going to be putting out is going to be creative tabs so that we can more easily access the items and blocks that we're creating. If you really enjoy these videos and want to help support the channel, I have a link to my Ko-fi page down in the description below. Ko-fi is similar to Patreon in that it lets you donate to the channel, and all of the donations are pretty much used to help me take time off of work so that I can make more stuff for you guys. But any support, from watching the video, to liking the video, to donating on Ko-fi, all of it is appreciated, and I just hope this stuff helps you guys out. So, get creating, have some fun, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.